So, thank you first of all for participating today. What we're going to talk about today is, for those of you who were able to attend the calls last week, that were more of an overview of the enhanced event registration process that's getting ready to be launched now this Friday. This is going to be a more in-depth view of that. So we'll actually walk through the process of setting up an event from start to finish. And do feel free to ask any questions that you have. Obviously, this is a new process for us as well. Um, so it's possible that there are questions that you'll have that we'll need to research for you and get back to you. But definitely feel free to ask those so that we know what questions are out there, and so that we make sure that we have as much information as we can as well. So what we're going to do on this call is to give you a demonstration of the sort of end result. If you were on one of the calls last week, then you'll have seen this, but this will be a refresher of what that process would look like from the point of view of somebody registering for one of your events. And then we'll take a look at setting up a new event. We'll look first of all at some of the options that you have when you first start out. Kind of the type of event that you want to set up, and whether you want to create it from scratch, or if you want to clone that event. And then we'll actually walk through the process of creating an event from scratch as well as cloning an event. So with that, we'll go ahead and show you kind of the end result. So again, this is just a demonstration event that I set up in this training environment. So, and I should say again, you probably are aware, but just in case you're not, we had intended to release this functionality last Friday, but there were a few things that were uncovered by our QA team that are now being resolved this week. So that we plan to now launch this functionality on this Friday. So once that is launched, then all of this functionality will be available to you in your standard login. So anyway, so this is, again, an example of what an event might look like that you would set up using this new Lightning functionality that again, you'll see starting hopefully on Friday. You can see the name of your event, the location and date and time for the event, the Register Now button sort of front and center there, as well as a banner image if you choose to include one. And then what you have are different tabs that show you different information about your event across the bottom of the screen. And as we'll see when we start looking to set up an event, you can determine which tabs you want to see here, what information you want to incorporate in each of those tabs, the order you want the tabs to show up in, etc. So for this particular event, we have an overview tab, which could have, whatever information you want to provide about the event itself, kind of in general. Then you could have information, if you have your event set up this way, on specific sessions that are being offered within that event. So you have the ability to allow an individual to register not only for the event, the full event, but also to register for specific sessions under that event if you want to set yours up that way. You could then have information about your venue, both an image of the venue as well as location details. You can then have a map showing exactly where that venue is being held. And again, you can decide which of these components you want to incorporate onto that page. And then information about your speakers. You can have kind of the general information about the speakers with their name. You can incorporate things like their social media accounts. And then as you click on each speaker, you can get more details about who they are and their biography, and you can click back and forth through those speaker details. And again, there are other tabs that you can incorporate as well. So we'll take a look at those as we walk through the actual setup process. And I won't go through this entire registration process, but basically you would click the register button and start in here by either logging in if the person has a CFA Institute login, or if they want to register as a guest, they would just fill in their guest details there. Click the register button. And then on the next screen, they would be shown the options for ticket purchase. So, and then we'll see how you can determine which types of tickets you want to offer, the pricing that you want to offer there. And you can determine as well how many of each ticket type you want to offer, or if you have certain tickets where it doesn't matter how many specific types within that grouping you want to make available, you can kind of lump those together. So in this example, there are 82 tickets remaining across both the general and member ticket categories.
Okay. Megan, sorry, it's Anna here. Can you hear me?
Yep. Yep.
Well, our societies offer quite a lot of tickets free of charge. Is that quite easy to set up as well?
Mm-hmm. Yep. You would just put in a price of 0.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So then at this point, I'm not going to continue through this process, but basically, what the individual would do would be to go ahead and select the type of tickets and how many they wanted to purchase, and proceed through providing payment and things like that. So, okay, so now we're going to talk about actually getting to that stage that we just saw, actually setting up your event in the system. When you go to set up your first event in Member Nation with this new interface, the one major difference with the way that you would go ahead and do that is, up until now, we have always told societies to start from the event category, since that's where you could incorporate a lot of the kind of repeating elements at the event category level. And then if you set up your event under that event category, it would automatically carry over some of those characteristics to your event when you were setting it up, and so you didn't have to recreate everything from scratch. In this new interface, this is slightly different. So because that cloning functionality is incorporated into the process, that need for those components being carried over from the event category is not there anymore. So instead of creating from the event category, you'll actually start from the events tab itself, and we'll take a look at that here in just a second. And then the first thing your first choice that you have to make is whether to clone an event that you've already created, or whether you want to create an event from scratch. So, and if you do choose to create an event from scratch, you have 3 different registration styles that you can choose from, which we'll take a look at here in just a second. So we still have the old conference and simple style events available. So if you have a very basic event, you don't necessarily want the different tabs there, you can choose the simple style. But for any other type of event, then we would definitely recommend using the Lightning event style. It's essentially replacing the conference style, and it just has a lot more of the functionality that has been released. So for most of your events, we would definitely encourage choosing that Lightning style event.
Hi, Megan. So the Lightning event, is that the most advanced version of the 3 registration styles?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
It has all of that new functionality as part of it.
Okay. And then we can't custom make any events emails, could we? Because you're able to do it on Constant Contact, but so we couldn't do a custom made one. We just have to choose one of the 3 registration styles.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Megan, it's Emma. So the events that you're familiar with sort of the lunchtime events we do. Would I not use Simple anymore for those? Or would I just keep it using Simple?
I mean, it's kind of up to you, because you could always create a first, create your first event in Lightning and just incorporate the pieces that you need. And then basically make that as simple as you want using the Lightning style. And then you can just clone that going forward, so that if your events are fairly similar, then you can just choose to clone them rather than having to recreate them each time. So, the Lightning style definitely has the most functionality that's out there. So we're encouraging societies to use that one. But if you choose to use a simple style, that style will still continue forward, and you'll still be able to choose that if you'd like. It just would have, obviously it's not going to have the ability to have the different tabs and things like that. So,
okay.
And as we walk through this, you'll kind of see what the differences are, and you can decide whether you want to try to use the Lightning style for all of your events, or kind of stick with the simple style.
Okay.
Any other questions before we start setting up our first event here?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right, then let's go ahead and take a look. So I'm here in our testful environment where we can start setting up our first event. So again, instead of starting from the event category, I'll start from the actual events tab. And you can see that you can, as usual, you can see all of your recent events. You can have views of different events here. But what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and click New. And it's going to give us some choices up front. And as I said, the first thing that you're going to be able to choose is whether you want to create a new event or clone an existing event. For this part of our call, we're going to go ahead and create our event from scratch. You would give your event a name as usual, so we'll call this and then this is where you would choose your registration style. Again, you probably would not want to choose the conference style, but you could choose simple if you wanted just a very basic event, or if you want all of the functionality that's available, choose your Lightning event style. And then you would actually go ahead and choose the event category that you want it to be a part of. So since we're not really using event categories as templates any longer, the event category is more essentially kind of a bucket that would house specific events within it. So kind of almost like a folder structure. Because you'll see when we go to clone our first event, you can choose your event category and then find the events that you have under that event category. So it's just an easier way to sort of organize your content. But for most societies, having just a single event category may be fine. That way you can basically have everything housed within that single event category, and you don't have to worry about creating multiple categories. So now that we've indicated,
where would those event categories been created?
So you would still create them from the event categories tab.
Right. So like where we've got member education or candidate. Okay, those. Right. Okay, got it.
Yep.
All right. No problems. Go on.
All right. So, and you obviously get a sample preview of what an event using this style would look like. But now we can go ahead and click Save and Continue. And it's going to launch into the sort of Lightning style event, which, is similar to the event builder style in the simple style category. And in order to speed up the functionality, it does have the preview functionality, but it doesn't necessarily display all of the components of that preview until you start actually setting up your event. That just sort of makes the thing, the interface run faster. One thing I'll also point out is that with this Lightning style, it doesn't have the autosave functionality. So you will want to make sure that you save as you go and as you start creating different components. So again, that's another tool that's kind of sped up the processing of the system. So, and as you've seen with the event builder, you've got all of your different tabs on the left, but you can see there are a lot more tabs than there are in the simple style event. So we'll just go ahead and start working on setting up our event. So for event info, again, you still have the same functionality that you had before, where you have an event name, or if you want to have a different display name, you can modify that here. You can see your event category. You can see the business group that this is under, or the society name. And this is the main place where you're going to indicate your ticket quantity. And again, this is going to be a ticket quantity, not necessarily a capacity. So, again, if you have some of your tickets are group tickets and some of them are just individual tickets, you'll want to kind of keep that in mind when you indicate your ticket quantity here. And I'll show you when we start actually setting up tickets, how you can kind of manage that inventory of your tickets. So in our case, we're just going to go ahead and say that we want to have 100 tickets available, basically across all the ticket types. You can provide a description here, but essentially this is only if you're using the sort of event view that you can have as part of your setup, where it kind of can list all of your different events in one single place. It doesn't appear on the actual event screen itself. You have the ability to indicate whether your event will automatically be marked as sold out if you reach the capacity for your tickets. You also have the ability to set up assigned seating. So you have a couple different styles of ticket purchase that you can set up. One is basically group tickets, where an individual can purchase a block of tickets, and they'll indicate who the individuals are who are going to be included as part of that group. You can also do assigned seating or table registration, which is sort of similar, where you can have basically one table, and you have specific individuals purchasing specific tickets for that table. So again, it's similar to groups, but there's slightly different nuances there. Your time zone should default to your own settings, but if that needs to be adjusted for where your event is being housed, you can set that here. You can again choose whether you want to use the 12-hour clock or the 24-hour clock, and then you can indicate the start and end date and time for your event. Okay. One thing that's been added is this registration timer functionality. And you can decide the length of time that you want this registration timer to run. And what this does basically is it gives somebody registering for your event a certain window of time in which to complete their registration. And the purpose of this basically is once the individual starts that registration process, it's going to go ahead and hold those tickets for them that they've indicated that they want to purchase. So that once they've started that process, nobody else could come in and register more quickly and kind of take away the last tickets that were available. So again, it's going to hold the tickets for them once they start that process for that window of time that you've given them. So that way, if they start the process but they never complete it, they won't hold up anybody else's tickets. It will eventually sort of kick them out, and they will it'll no longer continue to hold those tickets for them if they didn't complete the transaction. So again, you can adjust that if you need to. And then here you would go ahead and select the banner image if you want to have an image there across the screen. I will point out that you want to make sure that your banner image is using the dimensions that are provided. We have documentation on the Society Center that tells you the dimensions that you want to work with. If you have, and obviously that banner image is sort of long and narrow horizontally across the screen. So we do have, it will let you kind of crop the image, so you can decide exactly where you want that to be centered, and you can save that accordingly. If you have an image that is more vertical or definitely does not fit that horizontal space, it's possible to do something like paste that image into something like Paint. You can basically create a sort of horizontal block of just white space, and then insert that image within there. That's one way to kind of get around needing to have it be that horizontal setup. And then what you'll see as we go through all of these different tabs, you've got the event overview section here. And all of these overview sections, and we'll see one for each of the different tabs, the content that you fill in here is going to be the content that will show up at the top, or basically on that tab when you click it. So obviously, when you were working with the simple style, because you just had a single page, all of your content went into this one overview block for the event overview. But obviously now that we have different tabs that you can incorporate if you're using the Lightning style, you don't necessarily need to put as much detail in this event overview if you don't want to, because you'll have a venues tab, you'll have a speakers tab, you'll have a tickets tab. So again, you can decide which content you want to appear on each of those different tabs. But the event overview is going to be the one that populates first in most cases, and I'll show you how you can define the order that you want your tabs to show up in. So you would want pretty much the detail that you want to be kind of front and center when the person starts registering for your event. So, and then down below, you again still have the ability to define the calendar reminder text. Again, you can set up your event so that an individual can bring up the information and automatically, or not exactly automatically, but they can bring up the event and then add that detail to their own event calendar. So if they have a Google Calendar, they can add it to that, or Outlook, they can add it to that. And there's certain default information that's included in that calendar reminder. So just the name of the event and the date and time of the event. But if you want to customize that calendar reminder information, you can provide that information there. Again, it's just an optional field. All right, so that being done, I'm going to go ahead and click Save to save the information I put in that first tab. And you can see that if we refresh, it should go ahead and bring up some of our information, I believe. Maybe we have to go ahead and do our tickets first. So again, as we start progressing through here, we'll see the information start populating. So our next tab is the tickets tab. And again, this is probably going to be the most complex part of your setup, is deciding what types of tickets you want to offer, how much you want to charge for them, who you want to offer discounted rates to. So we'll take a look and see what different options we have. So if we click New Ticket Type, it's going to bring up our ticket type functionality. We're going to say that we want our ticket type to be published and active. And we'll go ahead and say that we want this to be our member ticket. And we'll say that our members are going to get in for free, so we're going to go ahead and indicate that. You can decide whether you want to enable ticket waitlisting. So if you reach your capacity for those tickets, you can enable waitlisting so that if somebody goes to register for your event, and if the tickets are all sold out, it'll indicate that, but it'll say, it'll give the individual the option to click a button to add themselves to a wait list. So you can decide whether you want to offer that or not. You can provide ticket information if you would like, if you need to provide further details about exactly what, who's eligible for that ticket or something along those lines. Down below, you can indicate whether this is a group ticket. Again, we talked about how you can define the group ticket types, and we'll set up a group ticket here in a second so you can see what that looks like. You have the ability to enable refund requests as part of your ticket, and you can decide which tickets you want to offer that for. The exact functionality of how that's going to work within our system is still being finalized, because the individuals will basically need to be able to get back into their registration if they decide that they need a refund and want to put in that request. So, but you do have the ability to enable that so that once we know exactly how that functionality will work, the individual who has purchased a ticket, they can go then back into their registration and request a refund if they find out that they're not going to be able to attend. And then here you would indicate your refund request policy so that can be provided on the screen. You then have the ability to show how many tickets are remaining as part of the registration page, so that it would provide that kind of countdown. And then you can restrict the quantity per order. And here, so for example, if you want the individual to be able to purchase no more than 5 tickets or no more than 1 ticket, you can indicate that here. So that's an option that you have there as well. Attach form. This is similar to the way that things worked in the simple style event, you can create a form that asks for additional details from your individuals who are registering. So if you want to collect dietary restrictions, you can do that. Or if you want to, collect information on how the person heard about the event, you can provide that as well. And basically, you can attach those forms to any or all of your ticket types that you would like. Alternate pricing, this is where you would indicate any early bird pricing or on-site pricing that you wanted to offer.
Sorry, Megan, with regards to the form, do we have a template that we could view?
I can show you. I can show you what one looks like.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. You can go ahead and create one yourself. Okay. We have documentation about how to do that on the Society Center now. Or
okay. Okay. I'll have a look.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. So if you do want to offer either early bird or on-site pricing, you would just check the box, indicate the price, and for early bird pricing, you would indicate when that price is going to end. And then the on-site pricing would just be activated on the day of the event. So that's how that functions. The accounting tab, this is where you would indicate if your event is taxable, you would indicate that, and you would select your tax class that would have been set up previously within the tax class object. And then down below, this is where, again, you would indicate the different GL accounts that your different types of payments would be applied to. And it used to be that you had to use the search function and actually look the account up by name that way. It's a lot easier now. You can actually just start typing in part of your income account name, and it would bring it up for you. So it's a lot easier to find those than it used to be. And you should just see the ones that you're eligible to use. So that'll make that a little easier as well. All right, so we'll go ahead and save that first ticket type. And
Megan, could I just ask a question?
Sure.
With the restricting of the number of tickets that people can buy, can we set it up so that they can only purchase one member ticket but can purchase, say, 5 guest tickets in the same transaction?
Yes. So to do that, if we go back into edit our ticket that we've set up, you would basically restrict the quantity. And I think it makes you indicate a minimum quantity. But so basically it's just saying if someone is purchasing any tickets and they have to, of this type, then obviously they're going to purchase at least one and no more than 5. So you could set that at this level. But then for your guest ticket, which we'll go ahead and create that next, you can have an unlimited restriction on there, or you could have a different number restriction if you wanted to. So let me go ahead and create
I think, Megan, remember how I was showing you my registered ticket list where there was a member who had bought himself a member ticket and someone else a member ticket who wasn't a member.
Mm-hmm.
That's what
we want.
I don't want to happen.
Yeah.
But then there was another transaction, Kathy, where there was a member who'd bought a ticket and then bought someone else a member ticket, but he actually was a member, but he didn't log in. So I had to really check the CFA IDs because and on the list they didn't come up next to each other.
Right.
So next to his name, that person's name who wasn't the member but had a member ticket, it had that he was a charter holder. So if I didn't pick it up that Carl, someone, I would have put him as a CFA when he wasn't. But then the other guy did buy 2 member tickets and they both were members. So I don't know how I don't mind if a member can't buy more than 1 member ticket.
Yeah,
so
I reckon, that's the only way to avoid it, isn't it? Each member has to go in and do their own, but can buy as many guest tickets at the guest price as they want, or whatever, or if you want to.
They're not going to like that because there's a few.
No.
Charter holders.
Unless there's another way around it.
And one thing I can look into for you too is that the way that this is set to be working going forward is that the ticket price is supposed to base on the information for the actual attendee. So when you complete the registration process, and you choose your tickets that you want to purchase, it's going to ask you to fill in the name and email address for the individuals that are actually going to be attending. So it should base the price on that information for those attendees. But I can look into that and, make sure that I have the information on exactly how that works and put that together for you and get that out for you. So let me do some investigation on that and make sure that I have the most accurate information or the most up-to-date information on how that's going to work after Friday, so that we have that.
Okay, thank you.
Because it should resolve that problem. But again, I'll want to make sure that I'm telling you exactly the right thing about how to set that up. And then one thing that you can do here is, for now that we've set up our ticket type, you can see that you also have the ability, you can obviously go back in and edit if you need to, but you can also edit your price rules. It used to be that to edit price rules, you had to get out of the event builder interface and go back into the Salesforce interface. Whereas here you can now edit your price rules directly from here. So I'll show you that this is where you can indicate essentially who's eligible for your specific price rules. So for this price rule, you can see that if you click on, this is essentially the default price rule for this member ticket. So what you can do is you can set certain limits for this price rule. So you can have usage limits, which essentially define how many times a price rule can be used. And you can set this based on all orders, by account, or by contact. So if you have, so basically, if you wanted to set a limit for all orders, what you could do with this is you could basically have, if you wanted to have a ticket where you were offering a reduced rate to the first 10 individuals who registered for your event, you could basically put a total limit on that ticket type, so that only 10 of them were available, period. So the first 10 people could choose that ticket if they wanted to. Or would receive that price if they wanted to. You could then limit per account if you wanted. So basically, and this would probably be used less just because of the way that our accounts are set up. But if you wanted to offer 10 discounted rates for everybody who worked for a certain firm, it would take a look at that account on their record and give them that price accordingly. Or if you want to limit it per contact. So again, if you wanted, if you only wanted one individual to be able to get one member rate, then you could set that limit there. And then down below, this is where you can define the price rule criteria. Obviously, we have the early bird rate that you can set up, but you can also set up specific start and end dates. So if you wanted to offer a reduced rate, just during this one defined period, you could set a start and end date for that price rule. You can set minimum and maximum items per order. So if you wanted to indicate that you want a certain price to kick in once the person has purchased, 10 tickets. So kind of like a multi-purchase discount. You can set something like that up. You have the ability to do source codes, which essentially work as kind of a coupon code. So you basically would set those up using the source code object within the system. And once you've defined what you want that source code to be, you can select it from here and attach that to your ticket type or to your price rule. And then somebody could enter that discount code into the registration interface when they're registering for your event to get that reduced rate. This is just where you would apply that source code so that the system knows, okay, for this event, if they type in this code, then they're going to get this rate. And then the customer badge. This obviously is where you would indicate the badges that you want that to be eligible for, again, that price rate that you're looking at there. So, and here you should just see those badges that you have access to. Obviously, I have access to all of the badges because of the nature of my login details or my permissions. But here, you could go ahead and start typing in, let's see, the first part of the badge type, and you could indicate, okay, I want the member Minnesota, anybody with the member Minnesota badge to be eligible for this price rule. If you had local members, you could select those, or if you had candidates that you wanted to receive that rate, you could select that as well. So again, that's how you would define who is eligible. Oops, I think I just deleted it. That's how you could define who is going to receive those certain rates. And then you also have what's called attribute pricing down here. You can make this as complex as you would like. So you have the ability to choose either an account, which is kind of basically more or less an employer, or a contact. And then you can define all sorts of different things. So if for some reason you wanted to offer a certain rate to anybody named Sally, you could choose that, or anybody who had, I think, birth date is in here. So if you wanted to set up a specific rate so that anybody who had a birthday in August got that discounted rate for those events in August, or if you wanted to set it so that, based on someone's location, so that anybody who was in a particular city got a specific rate, you could set that as well. So you have, a variety of different functionality options there. And like I said, I'm going to make sure that that I have the exact terminology for how that's going to work going forward. But I suspect that this is actually how this will work. You could create essentially one price, and then you could set up your different or one ticket type, and then you could set up your different price rules underneath. But again, I'll make sure that I know how the system's going to identify the attendees during that process. All right, so exit out of our price rule here. And we'll go back here to this screen. Then we could add our new ticket types. That we want to have a guest ticket that costs $10. Again, you have all of the same options that you had before. So attach your form if you want, alternate pricing, your accounting details. Then we'll go ahead and create a guest ticket just so you can see how that functionality works. Group ticket, sorry. So for your group tickets, as you scroll down, you would just need to indicate that it is a group ticket type, and you just indicate the group type. So probably something like group of 5 or whatever it is. And then here you would indicate how many individuals are actually in that group. And again, you can attach forms, you can do your alternate pricing, and you would want to set up your accounting as well. So once you've created all of your ticket types, this is where you can go ahead and manage the inventory of those different tickets. So if you remember, we said that we wanted to be able to sell 100 tickets total. So this is where you can define how many of these different, basically of that 100, how many fall within each of these categories. So for our group ticket, we wouldn't necessarily want someone to be able to purchase 100 group tickets because that would obviously put you way over your actual capacity. So let's say that we want to be able to sell 5 group tickets. So that would be a total of 25 individuals there. And then if we group together the guest and member tickets, because we'll say that we don't necessarily care of the remaining tickets. We don't care how many of them are purchased by guests and how many of them are purchased by members. So we're going to group together those that are remaining, and we'll say that there are 75 of those. So then we can go ahead and save that. Oh, except we have to call these.
So Megan, do you have to do this bit?
No, you wouldn't have to. So especially if you didn't have group tickets, then the system would just say, okay, there's 100 tickets available. Once we've reached 100 of, So it's more if you do have those group tickets, and so you want to define how many of each type you're going to offer. As you scroll down, then you can decide the order in which you want your tickets to display on the registration page. You can also define your ticket sale start date. And then the registration instructions are going to essentially be, details on, if you want to provide information about taxation for your event, or if you want to put a reminder that individuals should log in to register, anything like that you want to put there, you can. And here we're going to actually enable the group registration that we were defining there, and any instructions about the group registration would go here. So you might indicate, registration is in groups of 5, or whatever kinds of details you wanted to put there. All right, so again, we'll save at this point. And then if we go on to our venues tab, this is obviously where we're going to define where our event's being held. And again, this overview information is what's going to show up at the top of that tab, the venues tab, when we click on it. So we're going to go ahead and add our venue. Okay, whether this is the primary venue. This is where we can put the description of the address here, and then the address here that will define what actually drives the map. So we'll select that we want to have the map there. If you have an image of your venue that you want to incorporate, you can add that here. And again, you can crop it to fit the parameters for that image. I'll go ahead and save and continue.
Megan, each time we create a venue like this, like you've just done, does it automatically go to a venue library somewhere, so that if we're setting up another event that's at this venue, we can just go in and click on it without having to put all this info in again?
So it does add it basically to the venues object, but there's not, when you go to create your event, you have obviously that ability to clone the event, which we'll take a look at. And if you choose to clone an event that was held in that same venue, you would have the option to bring that venue over automatically. But if you're not cloning an event, you don't have the ability to basically go through and select and say, okay, I want to use this venue that I used before.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Megan, will we be able to have a library of images? Like in Constant Contact, you can have a library of images. So, for example, speakers, venues, biographies, things like that, and we could just quickly insert that in. Is that available?
Yes. So it's basically, and it's available now, as it's called the media collection, where you can upload images there. So so you could select them from there. You can basically grab kind of the URL that it gives them, or if you have them just like this image that I just brought up, this is just on my desktop, so you can always grab them from there as well.
Okay, excellent. And with regards to, I work with 8 different societies. Would I be able to create different folders for all of them, just so that it's easier to keep all the events for each society in one place?
So for that, I mean, you can set up the different event categories so that, you could have, a category for, for each of your societies that way. And I'm trying to figure out, I'd probably need to look into exactly how yours will work since you do have access to multiple business groups. So, because it may be that you just have, anything that you have access to, you may be able to see all of it kind of all at one time. So, but but the event categories are now essentially used to kind of organize your events. So if you wanted to set up a different event category for each of those societies and just house your events under that event category, that might be the best way to go.
Right. So that's like a folder, is that right?
Yeah. It essentially acts as kind of a folder.
So the category is like a folder. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Our next tab that we have here, this is access permissions, and this defines not necessarily who's eligible for certain pricing, but who can actually see certain things within the system. So you have the ability to restrict an entire event or any given ticket type just to specific badge types. So again, if you decided that you not only wanted only members to be able to purchase a member ticket, but you only wanted members to even be able to see that a member ticket existed, you could select the restrict button, and then you could select the badge types that you wanted to be able to see that particular ticket type. So you have that option here. So you could drag and drop basically any badges that you wanted to be eligible or wanted to be able to see that specific badge type. So that's what that is for there. And then you have your speakers tab. So this is obviously where you would input information about your speakers for your event if you want to do that. So you would input their name. You would be able to indicate the status of where they're at in the process of, agreeing to speak. The only status that actually drives anything is this accepted status. That's if you haven't marked them as accepted, then it won't automatically add them to the speakers tab or the speakers tab as part of your registration. But the rest of these statuses can be used to kind of define where they're at in that process. If the individual has a contact record, so they're already in the system, you can actually look them up and link to their record here. You can indicate their title, their company name. If you have an image of the speaker, you can again browse here and find that image and incorporate it. You can put biography information here. And then you can define things like if they have a Facebook account, if they have a LinkedIn account or a Twitter account, and you want to promote those as part of their speaker information, you can input that there as well. And then again, here, this would be the speaker overview detail that would show up at the top of the tab. All right. I'll save that. And then agenda. I won't go into too much detail of this on this, just sort of an interest of time. But what this allows you to do basically is, so if you have your event and your event is an hour, but you want to break that up into different workshops or different kind of defined agenda components, and you want individuals to be able to register for those separate components, you can define them here. Again, you could put your agenda overview information here at the top of the tab, but then you can define your different schedule items here. So for example, you could say, and you could define different capacities for the different components as well. So for your opening session, if that, if you wanted that to have the full capacity of 100, but then for your breakout sessions, you wanted those to be limited to groups of 15, you could do things like that. You could set the start and end date for each of those components, except I can't remember for sure what day I set this on. And it will holler if I put a time that doesn't actually exist as part of that session. Whoops, not 15 hours. And again, you can do things like enabling access permissions. You can set a specific price for a particular session if you would like. You can also indicate a specific room. So, and you can define a specific a specific description for that particular session. You can provide an image for just that session if you would like. Oh, except I always forget that. All right. I'll have to look into why it's giving me that error message. But so anyway, once you've set up all of your different schedule items, again, an individual would have the ability, once they've chosen their tickets as part of the registration process, they can then choose the different sessions that they want to attend. And then we also have sponsor package information. So you can, if you want to be able to offer sponsor sales for your event, what you can do is define your different sponsor packages. So for example, if you want to offer a platinum sponsor package, you can put in your price. You can decide how many of those platinum sponsor packages are available. Again, you could associate an image with that if you wanted to. You could attach a form. You can put in your accounting details again. And again, you could go through and define however many of those sponsor packages you wanted to be available. All right, we'll have to investigate that too. Unless it was because I didn't save it yet. Let's try that again. Okay. Yes, so that's good to note. Basically, once you've enabled the sponsor sales, then you would want to save it and then go ahead and add your sponsor packages, because until it knows that you have indicated that it's okay to have sponsor sales as part of it, then it's not going to allow you to actually create those sponsor packages. So, okay. So, and then you have the ability to define specific statuses. Some of them are defined automatically. So you've got a planned status, an active status, and a closed status, but you can define new statuses if you want to. And what these will allow you to do is to, on the next page, on the next tab where we set up our pages, you can define your page layout or your tab layout for each of those event statuses. So you can see here, we're under the event or the active status, and you can see that we've got an overview page, an agenda page, a venues page, a speakers page, and a sponsors page. And you can go in and you can say, okay, you can see that right now just the overview option is published. So we can go in and publish any of the other tabs that we want to publish. And you can define the different components that you want to appear on that specific tab. So for our venue, you can see that by default, it has just the venues or the venue map, but you may decide that you want to indicate the primary venue. You can change the order in which you want those to appear. If you have a secondary venue, you could add that as well. So again, you can define which tabs you want to be visible, what you want to appear on them, the order in which they want to appear, etc. Okay. And then the last thing here is the theme, which basically defines the way that your event's going to look. And this will be set up as part of the kind of onboarding process, just to make sure that it has all of those components that you want there. So let's go ahead and try refreshing this. And then kind of the last part of the process here is to go ahead and launch your event. So we can go ahead and change our status from planned to active. And then at that point, we should be able to grab our URL. If we go back to the main interface, we can get a glimpse of what our event's going to look like. So you can see that basically these are the different tabs that I've added. As you click on them, you can see the components that are part of that. For the venue, you can see that we've got the details about the venue as well as the map. Speakers, again, you can click on the speaker to see more information about them. Similar with the sponsors, you can see the sponsor packages that are here, and then the individual will be able to go through that registration process. So obviously we are, in the interest of time, let's quickly show what cloning an event looks like. Obviously, setting up your first event is going to be much more time consuming than cloning an event, because when you go into clone an event, you can decide which components you want to clone. And that's just a list of all of the different options that you have for cloning. You may decide you want to clone all of those pieces, or you may decide that you want to clone just certain ones. Let's take a look at what that process looks like. Again, we would start from our events tab. We would indicate that we wanted to create a new event. But instead of choosing to create an event from scratch, we're going to go ahead and say that we do want to clone an event. Once we've done that, again, we're going to give it a name. And we're going to indicate the start date for that event. And then what you can do is you can choose the event that you want to clone. And again, this is where if you have your event set up essentially within event categories acting as sort of folders, you can choose your event category that you want to start from, and then it will show you just those events that are under that event category so that you can choose accordingly. So then you can choose the event that you want to clone. You can indicate clone. It's going to, again, give you the different options for all of the components for that event. You can decide which of these you want to clone. You might decide, okay, I don't want to clone schedule items for this event since I didn't actually set one up. We'll choose clone, and it will go ahead and launch that process. And once this comes up, we'll be able to see that cloned event. Our vendor is working on making that process of actually loading a bit faster as well. So hopefully we'll see some enhancements there. And it's going to let you know that this event is basically already published, because one thing that that it also carries over when cloning is the status of that event. So if your event is in the active status, it's going to launch it, launch your cloned event in active status, but you can always change it back to planned at this point. But then as you click on the different tabs, you can see the cloned components that it carried over. So, your capacity, it's got the sellout function is in place, your details here. As you click on your ticket types, you can see that it's brought over the 3 ticket types that you had. It's going to sort of match some of the information to the new event. So for example, the ticket sales start date, this does default to today. But then some of the other pieces like, before I get ahead of myself, so it's brought over the venue here. It's brought over your speakers, access permissions, and your agenda. So for example, if you had specific, so if your original event was a 4-day event, when you clone it, it's going to automatically make it a 4-day event based on the new event start date. So it carries over some of that type of functionality as well. So again, basically, if you have an event that's very similar, it's going to be pretty easy to set up that cloned event.